All right, guys, I just want to welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today I'll be doing a preview and prediction for a crucial game going down in the Big 12 here in Week 7 between Utah and Arizona State. ASU, 5.5-point underdogs, 48.5 is the total, 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN from Salt Lake City. Getting things started with this Sun Devil offense. This group has been inconsistent, I would say, to put it mostly this year, as I really have not seen the growth I was hoping for through a couple of games. And it's really because this passing attack is just not molding into the form that I thought was anticipated with all the transfer receivers they added this offseason. As once again, it's the Jordan Tyson, Shimon Mateer show as the 1-2 punch. Tyson, of course, remains tremendous 39 receptions, nearly 500 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He's been bailing them out on a consistent basis. And the Mateer at tight end, 17 receptions for 160 yards. Of course, Riley Brown has been a nice emergence as the star running back for this team. He's third on the team in receiving yards. But the passing attack is just not really in sync like you would have imagined for a team that's coming off a playoff appearance. Nearly beat Texas as well. Sam Levitt, 63% comp rate. His accuracy's been incredibly shaky. 3 interceptions, not ideal. Does have about 208 yards per game and 8 touchdowns. The production could certainly be a lot better. You saw it against Mississippi State all the way back in week 2 in that loss where they were abysmal, 45% from Sam with 82 yards and some bad picks as well. Coming off his best game of the season, though, against TCU, had nearly 300 yards passing with 2 touchdowns. His legs have been a big focal point for this offense, though. He's been an incredible playmaker running the football. They're doing a lot of things to get him downhill when it comes to misdirection, in motion, and whatnot. So they're really utilizing his legs, though. It's not just him scrambling a lot. You saw this last year where it was really just him scrambling. But this year it's more designed quarterback run, and it's working for this offense. And he's been a great playmaker. He's really putting his body on the line, and it's really been daunting for teams to defend on third down. So even though the passing attack is, if anything, really regressing, Levitt's legs have helped the playmaking stay adequate for this unit. The aforementioned Relic Brown, 506 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's been very explosive, has a lot of nice patience in the backfield. Kanye Udo's been nice. Kyson Brown's getting healthy. That's going to establish a nice, threesome in the backfield for the Sun Devils. The one thing that I really am annoyed with Arizona State is Marcus Aurora does not seem to know how to call plays in these third and fourth and shorts or at the goal line where they just want to keep attacking downhill between the tackles. And it just doesn't work. I've not seen it work really once all year. I think they've converted maybe a couple of fourth downs on QB sneaks, but it's just been a problem for them, which is really shocking because this is a good interior offensive line. At left guard, Big Bo has been a nice emerging. Ben Coleman at center is one of the better ones in the country. And Kyle Scott is a veteran at right guard who's been, a little bit underwhelming. But they've really struggled in that area, and it's really affecting them in the red zone because they just cannot seem to get great play calls. And I want to see some better variety from those calls. Focus on Tyson more. Just better design, really, because they just keep trying to run the football in those areas, and it doesn't work. They tried it early against TCU, and they got stuffed and ended up giving up a free score, I'm pretty sure. So they got to fix this offense in that regard, and they need to continue to find more balance when it comes to really just efficiency through the air and on the ground, because on the ground they've been pretty good, but through the air, it's not always been there. You're going up against a Utah defense that is, incredible. I think this is a very solid unit. I know things got away from them against a backup quarterback against Texas Tech many weeks ago. They played quite good in that game up until then, though. But overall, they ended up giving up about 500 yards of offense. The run game started to get going in that fourth quarter, and then the passing attack, they were really able to, Will Hammond was throttling it in the tight windows. And, I had concerns about this secondary coming into the year. I think it's the iffiest unit on this team. Smith Snowden struggled. Blake Cotton's been inconsistent this year. Elijah Davis has not been all that great. Jackson Benny, he made some big time plays in that game, but in terms of his coverage ability, it still, gave up a big amount of yards. And then I think over at safety, Nate Ritchie, he's a guy who's just not been very good for this team ever in coverage. And he's one of their starters. And you also have Teo Johnson, a veteran who's been underwhelming in his own right. So this is a secondary you can take advantage of. I think Beanie in the slot, though, is probably going to be your best player, and even he struggled against the Red Raiders. Great playmaker, though. I think this is a corner group that's going to continue to be a work in progress. This matchup is a lot easier for him. Obviously, Tyson's probably the best receiver in football, but the rest of the group, who's going to attack you? There's not another receiver on this roster that's getting, targets or even receptions. So nothing's really happening in that realm. So I think you just got to focus on Tyson. The Mateer, he's a guy that can really hurt you in that short to intermediate range, while Tyson downfield is certainly a handful. The linebacking group for Utah checks out. I think this is one of the better groups in the entire country. Jonathan Hall leading the way. He's a phenomenal run stopper, as is Lander Barton. Lavani Dumani has not been playing as much, but he's a great number 3 for when they get him on the field. This defensive line, I thought they played a lot better than I anticipated against Texas Tech. Again, they were on the field a lot in the second half, and they just started to get worn out. John Henry Daly, though, he's been a pleasant surprise. He was great against the Red Raiders, as he has been all year. 8.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, really teeing off on some of these opponents here. Some of the other guys like Logan Fano have been respectable. Cash Dillon, a younger player, getting on the field. Paul Fitzgerald, not as much, a little bit buried more so on the depth chart. I mean, they have more edge players, I think, guys on the interior I'm confident with. Jonah Liai, and then Akil Famai as well on the interior, getting a bulk of the snaps. Not much rotation there. So Carson Kafusi's getting involved as well. So the edge group, I think, is pretty sound. The interior, not as well. But this is a rushing attack that has really not been great in short yardage when attacking the middle of the defense, and Utah's certainly going to be a handful in that regard. I think Henry Daly, though, is going to probably continue to have a great game. Josh Adkins at left tackle is not allowed to sack this year. Right tackle Max and Ankor has been tremendous. So these tackles are pretty good. This offensive line has been holding up. But for the Arizona State offense, there's some things that really need to be cleaned up, and that includes their efficiency through the air. We'll see if they can make it happen against a weaker Utah secondary. Moving to the other side of things, that Utah offense against the Arizona State defense. It was a disappointing effort in that loss to Texas Tech because, everyone knows they have an elite front, including I. But I thought that they would be able to handle it with their offensive line, which many consider to be the best in the country, and they're just not able to run the ball at all. 101 yards in that game. Couldn't get anything going in terms of explosiveness. The quarterback run was not able to generate much yardage as well. None of the motion really worked, and I feel like they could have made a stronger commitment to the run game, but at some point, I guess you got to try something else. Also in that game, Devon Dampier showcasing his lack of improvement when it comes to fundamentals and mechanics, as he was overshooting some receivers. They had a big touchdown that was called back as well due to an illegal man downfield on the offensive line. So it was just a whole lot of bad. I mean, he was efficient in that game. They were just not able to get much going downfield. And he also had a couple of bad picks. So we're going to reset now. We're going to be going up against another defensive line that's incredible. Arizona State is phenomenal against the run. They've proven that over the last year and a half now that they are no joke. It's one of the best units in the country. They don't give up much breathing room to anybody. Most yards on the season's 119 on 42 attempts. These opponents are trying. They can't get nothing going. 2.6 yards per attempt is no fluke. And TCU, they were held to just 10 yards rushing after a couple of sacks. For Utah, though, you're going to continue to lean on these guys. Caleb Lamu at left tackle, Spencer Fano at right tackle. These guys are still elite. Tanoa Tagai at left guard's having a great year. I think at right guard, Michael McCofsey is a great veteran. And then Jaron Kump at center. He's also a multi-year starter. So this is still a phenomenal group, looking to bounce back after that weak effort and focusing back on that D-line for ASU. This is a veteran group in their own right. Everyone from last year came back. CJ Fight on the interior is phenomenal. Clayton Smith, Elijah O'Neal, two really good run defenders, and those are also the best pass rushers. Even though I think Prince Dorba can make a case for him being the best pass rusher on the team. I mean, they have a nice threesome themselves coming off of that area. Justin Woodley is still in this group. It's a phenomenal group. They have a lot of rotation on the boundary. I think on the interior, not so much, but Jacob Rich Kangaika is playing much better than he did last season. This is just such a great group. I love the athleticism from the linebackers as well. These guys seem to be making every play for them. In Jordan Crook and Keyshawn Elliott. Elliott is great when it comes to being a downhill run stopper. Crook's a little bit more consistent in coverage, but regardless, these guys are great at getting out into the flats and making plays, not just against the runners, but in coverage as well. And that's one thing that Utah's going to look to do is establish this run game. Devon Dampier has great skills when it comes to being a runner. He's a phenomenal dual threat player, nearly 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns this year. But it was tough to get anything going against Tech. I mean, he only had 27 rushing yards. He could not get loose. And I'm sure they're going to scheme up some new things here to get this offense going under Jason Beck. Wayshawn Parker and Corey Rogers, two really sound running backs that have been efficient for him this year and productive. The top three in this group combined for 150 rushing yards per game. I felt coming into this season they had the chance to be a historically great rushing attack, and that did get derailed a little bit against Texas Tech. But they can look to get some of their own back here against the Sun Devils. You look at their defensive secondary for ASU. Keith Abney, Javon Robinson. These guys are sound, right? They've been very inconsistent, though, throughout the year. I think Abney's been a little bit better, really by a wide margin than Robinson, which is a little disappointing because I considered him the best player in this secondary. But Abney's having a great season, and Robinson's going to have some resurgence here at some point. Kendrick Breedlove in the slot's a bit of a weakness for him, but he's a first-year starter for him, getting things in hand. Adrian Wilson not playing very well, and Xavier Alford's absence due to injury. Miles Ghost Rouser, he plays a lot of box safety, and he's really good against the run, and he's a phenomenal patroller for him as well. In Utah, they just don't have the components to attack downfield, I think is the biggest problem. I think Ryan Davis is a good pass catcher. He's a guy out of the slot that can really hurt you in that intermediate range. You know, he had 100-plus yards in their last contest against WVU. He had 10-plus, or he had exactly 10 receptions, that is, against Wyoming and Tech. So they like to force him the football. He's got strong hands. He can make good plays, especially at the sticks. Dalen Bentley, 3 touchdowns at tight end this season. You got guys like Tobias Merriweather, Smith Snowden at corner. He likes to get involved a little bit on offense. They're just not very deep at receiver. It's not a talented group, and that was a big problem against Tech. And I'm like, man, they're hanging in here. But if they're not going to be able to run the ball, they're not going to be able to do much. Bentley was able to get loose and make a play downfield. And then Davis, of course, is going to get his targets. But other than that, there's not much going on. I think Merriweather could be a respectable player at 6'5", 200 in the red zone. And he can make some tough catches at the first down marker as a possession pass catcher with physicality, but he's not really been involved much in this offense. So it's really just a two-man show when it comes to catching the football, and they just spread it around with everybody else. Interesting matchup, though, I think, for Utah. You're looking for them to bounce back significantly on this side of the ball. Mainly in the run game, because that's really the identity of their football team. And when they're clicking, they're going to be tough to slow down. And that leads us to the final thoughts here in the prediction. And it seems like Arizona State is just kind of a ticking time bomb. I'm a very big fan of this team. I think they have the potential to be very good. They've just had some slow starts. Against Mississippi State wasn't ideal. They were able to force a bunch of turnovers against Baylor. Against TCU, another slow start. Seemed like they were going to be doomed before they rallied. And at some point, it's just going to burn them. That second half against Mississippi State was phenomenal, where they nearly shut them out in that half. And I think for Utah, though, this defense, they did play very well against Texas Tech before the bottom fell out for them. And I think that speaks volumes on what they're going to be able to accomplish here. I think their front seven is great. I think their secondary has some issues, but I don't know if Arizona State is in a position to consistently attack that, because even though Jordan Tyson's elite, I mean, is he really going to account for 250 yards in this game? It's totally possible, right? But I just don't think that's going to happen. And you need multiple assets to really take advantage of this Utah secondary. And that's what the Red Raiders did. And I think for Utah, I think they're facing an elite run defense. But I think they're going to get back to smash and pound. And I think they're going to do really well running the football in this game. And I think they're going to be able to capitalize on some short fields as well. And I think they're going to come up with those stops, because Arizona State, I don't think they're going to learn from their mistakes. Marcus Arroyo is going to continue to call those boneheaded decisions in the short yardage areas. And I think Utah is going to be able to capitalize on that. I'm going to pick them to win the game by 10. I'm going to pick them to cover, even though I'll probably be rooting for Arizona State in this game because I'm a fan of the team. I think it's a tough ask here with how they've looked. I think the bye week certainly does them wonders, but just to start the year, they've just not been very good, really escaping week after week, and nearly escaped against Mississippi State, where, again, they got stuffed at the 1-yard line like 3 times. That's why they ended up losing that game. So that's me for today's episode. I'm going to take Utah to get the job done and bounce back. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.